Hello, welcome to the Crafting Chez. I'm Ruth from Beltane Gifts, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make one of these, which is a needle felted pyramid. Now, it's quite an iconic shape, just think of the pyramids, and I thought, seeing as it's quite a tricky one, I would show you how it's made. Now, if you haven't needle felted before, this is kind of a more advanced shape to make, even for the basics range, so I definitely recommend having a go at making a few balls first and then moving on to this one here. The balls that you make, you can actually use and adapt to create the pyramids, so that's quite handy. So I hope you enjoy the video. If you do, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you want to catch future videos, be sure to click on that subscribe button and the bell icon, and any questions, anything you'd like to see me do in the future, be sure to pop it down there in the comment section. I love to hear from you guys. For today's project, we are going to be using some of this. This is grey Corriedale roving. Now, this is the natural grey of the Corriedale sheep. The roving is wool that's come off the sheep. It's been washed, it's been put through a machine, carded, and when it comes out as a continuous length of fibre. This one I've pulled apart and started to mess up. And that's because when we're working and we're making 3D shapes, it actually works out a lot better if you mess up the fibre first. So tear it apart and just rotate the pieces just like this and just get it as messy as possible. And the reason this works better is because all the fibres are going to be going in different directions. With the roving, what's happened is they've been carded, so all the fibres are going in just one direction. So when you stab through, the needle just goes through and doesn't connect. Whereas if you cross hatch your fibres, have them going in lots of different directions, when you stab through, they just knit together. It just works out so much better when you're doing 3D felting. If you're doing small delicate details, then just a small section of roving's great because you've got all your fibres going in one way, just like so, and you can lay them on and stab them on and really control it. But for what we're doing today, to make that 3D shape, messed up fibre is best. Now, to felt the fibre, we've got 3 different felting needles today. I've got my large generic needle, which is the longest one, my medium generic needle, which is my medium one, and my shortest needle. Now, this is a gauge needle, it's a 38 star. I would normally use a generic needle just because that's all this project will need, but this is just what's in the handle at the moment, so that's what I'm using. Also, I've got some finger protectors because I am going to be holding on to the work as I stab, so these are just to keep my fingers safe. Okay, now I'm going to be using or creating a ball to start off with, and this ball is going to be what I'm going to use for several other projects. So if this introduction looks familiar, it's because I'm using this very first part where I make a ball in 3 different videos coming soon. It just saves me having to keep doing it again and again. So first step, finger protectors on. Grab your roving, make sure it's as messy as you can make it. So this has got a few clumps in it. I'm using about 10 grams, just under 10 grams at the moment because I want quite a large ball to work with. But you can use less if you prefer to make a smaller shape. Okay, so this is looking quite messed up. What I'm going to do is just squish it together a bit. What I want to do is get all this fibre together just into a basic kind of ball shape. And I'm going to start off with my big needle and see how I go. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm imagining that I've got a ball, and in the ball, right in the centre, there's just one point, and that's the point that I need to be aiming for. So what I'm going to do is keep rotating the ball of fibre and keep just aiming the needle at that central point. Now, it's very important when you're doing this, don't pinch too tightly. If you squeeze it and then stab it, what you'll end up with is flat areas, and we don't want that. We want to evenly felt the whole surface, and also don't push it down onto your surface you're felting on. Sorry, I forgot to point that out. This is a bag of rice that I've got. So yeah, we don't want to squish it, we don't want to push it down too much. We're just kind of holding it so that everything's sticking together, and keep your other fingers just out of the way. It's very, very easy to kind of wrap them under, at which point you end up stabbing all through your fibre and into your fingers, which we don't want. So keep stabbing, and we're just going to keep rotating the ball and stabbing like this until everything starts coming together. At the moment, the needle's not really connecting with much, so it's just going to take a little while with some stabbing to bring things together. Now you can probably see I'm stabbing quite deeply. I'm doing several really deep stabs. I'm not going out the bottom of the ball, I'm just going as deep as I can without going through. And That's because I want to catch all these fibres and start bringing them together. At this point we want to get those fibres right in the middle of the ball as well. Okay, so this is starting to come together now. You can tell once it starts to felt. It's a bit like when you're whipping double cream. You get to that point where it just starts to thicken. So I'm getting to that stage now. Once you start to feel it, and you'll see it as well, you'll see when you stab in that the fibres start to stay. They're not bouncing back as much. So once you reach this point, just have a look over the whole shape, take it a bit slower now, and just look for any areas that are sticking up more than others. Okay, so I think our ball is done. We're ready to move on to our shaping, and what I've got is my medium needle, just because for me this is kind of the thickness ready for medium needle. If you find that yours is still a bit fluffy, you can stick with your big needle. The trick to knowing when to switch is when you find it's getting a bit hard to get your needle into your felted project, or if it's felting too quickly. So if you find that when you stab you just indent too much, then just swap down to your next size needle, but play it by ear. So what we need to do first is outline the base. To do that, you're stabbing at a 90-degree angle, just stabbing straight down, doing lots of little jabs. We don't need to stab too deeply at this point, and we're stabbing straight down, just in a line. And what you want to do is make sure that you stab in the same places, in that same line. If you stab to either side, it just means that the line ends up spreading out. We want quite a nice defined line, so I'm just going to do a little line here, and just keep going around the outside edge. Okay, so not sure if you can see that. We've got our square-ish shape. If you look from the side, you can see it's kind of bulgy here where it's sticking out. So now we've got our shape defined, what we need to do is just stab within that shape. So stabbing straight down just within that square. Again, little jabs close together. Don't over stab this, we don't want to make it all concave, we just want to flatten it. That's kind of flattened there if you look from the side. So we're doing a pyramid, so it's going to have 4 triangular sides, and each of these is going to have one of these square edges as its base. So we're going to be working up from these, and if we turn it this way, just figure out where your point is going to be. So it's going to be around here. I'm going to hold it sideways. This here is my line where my base is. So just from here, I'm just going to do a line up to this top point here, and same from the other corner. You can see where the line is here, and you've got your big squishy bit. Now we're going to be doing exactly the same as we did with the base. We're just going to be stabbing within this, if you imagine it's a triangle, and we're just going to stab straight down. So if this is our base, that's our flat surface, our point is up here. What we want is this angle to the point. So you see that there, that angle there? So we're going to be stabbing at a 90-degree angle to the plane we want to create. So 90-degree angle, and we're just going to stab over the whole thing. You don't need to change the angle of your needle, keep it as is, and just stab over that whole area. Okay, I'm going to get rid of my felting pad just because it's quite difficult to get the space so that I don't stab the camera. So there we go. Don't worry, I'm not going to be stabbing all the way through, I'm just going to be stabbing into the surface here. I would recommend that you do use a felting surface though if you're doing this at home. Now I'm losing my outside edge as I go, just because all the fibres are going a bit squishy. So I'm just going to redefine those, just so I know where I'm stabbing. Now don't worry that this isn't looking very pyramid-like yet. We need to keep going and doing all the sides before it's going to start looking how it should. So we've now got a point that's going to come up here, and that's the corner there of our square. So our other point is going to come up here, just to this top point. So we can do exactly the same for all of our edges now. Just define the outside lines and then stab to flatten down in the middle. Okay, Now I know it doesn't look much like a pyramid yet. Don't worry, as you stab in you'll find other areas get pushed out. So this is the base here. You can see how as we've been pushing the fibre in at the top, it's come down here, which gives us kind of like a concave area. So we're going to redefine our square, just go round. Now you notice my outline that I'm doing is inside, so this bit is extra. Don't worry, because we're going to be stabbing that in from a different angle in a minute. Okay, so I've got my square back. Now I'm going to start from the side again. This time I'm just going to be stabbing at the edge, just catching these edge bits here, and what I'm doing is I'm doing kind of like a 45-degree angle and just firming it up a bit. What you're doing is kind of pushing extra fibre up here where we want it and just creating something to stab into when we want to get the nice sharp corners. So we've ended up with kind of a rounded edge now around the corners. That's good, it's starting to firm up, it's going to be great for later. Now we haven't got a point at the top. Now a point's going to be the hardest bit to do because we're taking a lot of fibre and we're trying to get it into a small area. So we're going to do a bit more stabbing at the top, and I'm going to go round as if it was a cone. So I imagine that there is a line coming all the way through from the bottom right to the point at the top, and my needle is going to be stabbing towards that central point. So you see my needle is always, as I'm rotating there, pointing towards that central point there. And what this does is it just evenly brings in the sides. And you see the angle that I'm stabbing is 90 degrees to the shape I want to create. And you see how that's starting to point up? Now I'm not going all the way down, just going enough just to give it a nice smooth shape. There we go. So once again we're going to look where our square is, and we're going to redefine our point so we can better see where our point is here. Just going to stab down the sides until we reach that point. Okay, so you're starting to see it a bit better, and now we're going to stab again and go around the whole thing like we did before, 90-degree angle to the shape we want to create, just to flatten each of these four sides. And to do this I'm just using little jabs close together, not going too deep because we just want to change the surface area, not the whole shape. Also try to go as close to your edge as you can. Okay, so if you see that there, bit of a curve but we're getting there, so much flatter. I'm going to do the same for the other three sides. Again we need to go through the base, you see it's concaved again. And we're doing this bit by bit, building it up and bringing it in gradually. You'll find that you end up with a firmer finish this way, and also you've got more control over the overall shape. And again, try to get as close to the edge as possible. And again, redefine that triangle. I'm using quite a low angle at the moment, almost soaring at the side, but not putting any pressure on the side of the needle, so I'm not putting any weight or bending it, just because that's how you would break a needle. And you'll find that the more we do this, the easier it is to see and define that point. There we go, you can see they're starting to meet up now. And what we need to do is really get that line defined, so again stabbing at a 90-degree angle and just focusing on any bits that stick out more than others. You can definitely see there's more of a point now, but our sides aren't quite even and it's quite high. I think I prefer a bit more of a squatter pyramid, so I'm going to go over the base again just because, as I say, it's not quite even. So I'm going to work on this corner here and bring that up, and do that just by, as we've been doing before, stabbing straight down. I'm just focusing more on that corner than on the others. Now you can see too that my square isn't quite square. So what we need to do is bring this area in a little bit. So what you can do, just really gently between finger and thumb, just squeeze. You see how that's squeezing in slightly. Once you've got it where you want it, then stab just straight down. Be careful of your fingers, definitely make sure you're wearing finger protectors for this one. and just stab down. And what's happening is that you're putting those fibres closer together in that area, so that when you stab you're catching more of them, and more of them are felting together at once, which should help hold that shape that you've put it in. So basically the exact same reason that you wouldn't want to do this when you're making your ball is what helps you when you're making your finishing touches to your square. And this is a good time as well, whilst you're squeezing it, to pay particular attention just to these edges, because any loose fibres or looser fibres are being squished in together, so you can catch them and just get that nicer edge. Okay, so our square's looking a bit more square, which is good. What we want is to bring our pyramid down so it's a bit more pyramidy. So for me personally, I want to bring this point down a little bit. So it's just a case again, just bringing these sides in. And what I'm going to be doing is I'll be stabbing on this side whilst looking at this side, and that helps me to get my edge in where I want it. Just some little stabs just to bring things down, and I am putting a little bit of pressure on the top just to bring this point in a little bit. So this is more in keeping with what I'm after. I just need to match it up with the other sides now. Now this is like most of my other projects, you can keep going for as long as you want until you get the shape and the finish you want. So yeah, pyramid is a tricky one to do, but definitely worth learning. Once you've got this down, you're able to make pretty much any shape. Definitely keep going, keep practicing with it, but I think for now this will do. So there you go, there is needle felted pyramid. Bit more filming juice. Lovely.